What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Forgotten Sci-Fi, where we talk about books, movies, and TV shows in the science fiction and fantasy genre that don't get enough attention or, people just don't talk about nowadays, even though they were great. And today we're going to be talking about City of Ember. But before we get started, special shout out to all the people that signed my middle school yearbook. Stay cool, Bill. I got news for you. I make videos called Forgotten Sci-Fi on YouTube. So don't think that worked out the way we thought it was going to. That being said, all of the best things in my life are things that my grandmother taught me. My grandmother was the coolest person alive. She introduced me to comic books, horror movies, science fiction, fantasy novels. You name it, my grandmother was the coolest. And one of the things she did is I was young. I wasn't super young. This book originally was released in 2003, and I was born in 1976. So, I was past my teenage years. My grandmother passed this on to me. She gave me hundreds and hundreds of books. And this was actually YA before YA was a category. And so it spawned several sequels. But the thing is, YA wasn't really a category. This was written by I believe it's pronounced Jean Duprow, but it might be Jean Duprow. I'm not 100% certain. So let's go over a basic synopsis of City of Ember. Now, it is important to note that City of Ember is not just a book. There was also a movie released in 2008 that Tim Robbins is in, and there was a graphic novel released in 2012. Obviously, I own all of these. I actually own the City of Ember box sets with all 4 books, but I have the graphic novel and I have the DVD. I love City of Ember. The movie was okay. It was definitely geared towards a certain audience that was maybe not the audience of the original book, but that happens. So let's go over the basic plot of City of Ember. Now, Ember is an underground city, but we don't know it's underground so much at the beginning. When you first start, it's about 2 kids, Lina and Dune. Now, in my head, I always thought it was Lena, right? Because it's spelled Lina. Now, sometimes you don't know words until they're spoken out loud. And I think even in the movie, they might have pronounced it Lena. But upon further reflection, I heard it on the audiobook. My son and I were listening to it not too long ago, and they referred to her as Lina. And I'm like, that can't be right. But then there's a certain part of the book where they say Lina, and Lina rhymes with something else, something her little sister is trying to say. So then it makes sense. Yes, it is pronounced Lina. But in my head, it was always Lena. Lena Mayfleet and Dune Harrow. Now, they're both about 12 years old. Now, the City of Ember is an old city. In my mind, I always pictured it as, like a 1920s Chicago type situation. Everything in this city is run on electricity. There is no fire. There is no gas. Everything is run on electricity. So, Lena and Dune reach 12 years old, and in school, as is their custom, they get career day. And their career day is a little bit different. People don't come in and tell you what they do for a living, and you choose what you want to do. No, a career is chosen for you, and you're to do that job for the benefit of the city, because Ember is the only light in the dark, and that's what you are taught. That was what has been taught for generations, that Ember is all there is. Outside of the city is just known as the wastelands, and it's pitch black and no one can see anything, and people go crazy. And because they have no access to fire, they have no access to gas of any kind, they haven't invented a battery. So the whole place is run by a generator, a giant underground generator with an underwater river. But they haven't invented batteries, so they don't have moving lights, as they refer to them. Eventually, near the end, they do get access to a moving light, which helps them out tremendously. And I'll get to that. So, Dune and Lena loves to run. Dune loves to tinker. So, Dune gets the worst job possible for himself, which is a messenger. And Lena is given the job of working in the pipe works, which is what all the electricity and all the water goes through underground. And so Dune wants to trade, and that's a great surprise to Lena. And it's a really good thing for her because he got the job of messenger, because they don't have telephones, or maybe they had telephones at one time and they no longer work, or they never really caught on. But basically, they messenger is a job, and you run back and forth across the city delivering messages. So they trade jobs. Doom goes into the pipeworks, and Lena delivers messages. And through the course of events, they find out not everything is exactly the way it seems. They all have the legends of the builders who built the city. Eventually, all of these things coalesce, and Ember is dying. It is very clear that Ember has been there a very long time. Everything is old. Everything is rotting and decaying and breaking down. And there are spells of darkness where the generator stops working and people just want to, get the lights back on, but they're trapped in the darkness. And, sometimes it goes off for a few minutes, and then sometimes it's just a couple seconds. And people are always scared that it's not going to come back on because there is nothing else except for Ember, the light in the dark. And so what happens is, through a course of events, they find a box. And the box belonged to the 7th mayor, which was Lena's great-great-grandfather. The truth of the situation is, there was some kind of cataclysmic event, maybe a nuclear war, maybe something else. I believe it was a war that led people to believe that humanity would not survive. And on the precipice of this war, much money and time was spent building a city inside of a mountain. Now, no one knew about this city except the people working on it. And the only people allowed in the city when it was opened for the refugees were elderly people. And the elderly people each brought a baby that was given to them to raise, an infant. And they were never to speak of anything before Ember. So the legends of Ember, people don't know that they once existed on the surface of the world. And the reason for this is they want to wait 200 years so that humanity can leave Ember and go back to the surface, and it's safe for them to live again. But if they go back too soon, humanity will be died out. They will not survive on the surface. And so the infants are never told about the surface. They're never given a history of anything. As a matter of fact, they don't even understand the word boat, because they have a book of old sayings, and, we're all in the same boat. Does not make sense to them because there's no such thing as a boat in Ember. But they didn't want the kids, when they grew up, to miss anything. And you can't miss something if you don't know about it. So eventually they find out that the 7th mayor was supposed to open the box, and they have been in there almost 100 years too long. And that's why they're running out of supplies. Although the storerooms were greatly stocked, they're beginning to run out of supplies. The generator's breaking down. It's been running for 100 years more than it should at this point. And so Lena and Dune find the box. Lena's younger sister chewed up the instructions. It took them a while to decipher them, but it was the rules for egress, how to get out of Ember. So eventually the crooked mayor is chasing them, and that's another subplot that's quite interesting. And in the movie, the mayor was played by Bill Murray. So eventually they have to sneak out of the city, and they find their way to the surface, and then they find a way to get a message back to Ember with the instructions on how to leave and come to the surface. And they came out on a mountain, and the world is green and beautiful. They had never seen the sky before. All they had ever seen was the darkness surrounding Ember. So that was the first book. That's what the movie is based on. That is what the graphic novel is. Now, there are 3 more books in the series, which I'll glaze over very quickly. Only because this is specifically about the city of Ember, which is the first in all of it, and by far the best. So the second book is called The People of Sparks. When they leave the mountain everyone, hundreds of people come out and they find a village. And the village, people actually live there. People did survive on the surface, but it's a very agrarian society. You should think Middle Ages with a little bit of mechanical knowledge and maybe some scraps of technology left behind, because the old cities do exist. Even though they're a couple hundred years old and most people don't know what the machines did, they make simple machines. So it's a very agrarian society. And in the people of Sparks, the city of Ember, people join with the village of Sparks to become one society. It's very problematic as Ember has behaved one way for hundreds of years and Sparks has behaved another way for hundreds of years. But there are solutions, and some solutions are found, and we wrap it up in a nice little bow at the end. However, in the fourth book, which we're going to call the third book here, because let me be clear, the third book released was called The Prophet of Yonwood. However, in chronological order, The Prophet of Yonwood would actually be the prequel, what happens before the City of Ember. So in my opinion, after reading all of the books multiple times, you should read them in the order of City of Ember, People of Sparks, Diamond of Darkhold, and then the prequel after, because the prequel tends to wrap everything up in a nice little bow. So the next book in the chronological series would be the Diamond of Darkhold, and there are many problems. Society is breaking down because they have too many people and they can't compensate for it, and they really need help. And they find out that there is a legend in Sparks about the people of Ember, and that there is a diamond that will save them all. And so basically it's a societal reconfiguration book at the same time as it is a mystery treasure hunt book, because they're trying to hunt this mysterious treasure that's going to save them all. And what could it possibly be? And it wraps up nicely. I really like the way it wrapped up. I'm not going to tell you what the Diamond of Darkhold actually is. I'll leave that for you to get to and be pleasantly surprised by it. As far as the Prophet of Yonwood, on the way out of the City of Ember, Lina and Dune find a notebook with basically a diary written by one of the original inhabitants of Ember, one of the older people that brought a child in with them. And the Prophet of Yonwood is that woman's story. And so Jean de Prowl must have been planning the Prophet of Yonwood from the very beginning in order to have this thing that is in the first book that wraps it all up in a nice little bow. But you don't need to know who that person is until you read the entire series. So check out the City of Ember novel. You can get the box set. I have the hiccups. You can get the box set on Amazon for, I believe, like $20 for 4 books. They read very easily. You'll probably spend about 2 to 3 days per book maximum, with just a couple hours here and there. They read, some books read a lot easier than others. City of Ember reads very easily. So do the rest. Enjoy them. About $20 on Amazon. You can also find the graphic novel on Amazon for about $15. The DVD you could probably find for $2 or $5 on Macari. So definitely check those out. Also, City of Ember's, the movie has got to be streaming somewhere. If I find the description, if I find out where it's streaming, I'll leave that in the description so you guys can check that out. Anyway, thank you guys. Y'all have a great day, and we're going to get back to doing more forgotten sci-fi because I actually love this shit.